I grew up in the Mormon church being told that we should never look at outside sources of information because they would mislead us, they were incorrect. We should only get our information about the Mormon church directly from the Mormon church. After leaving the church and learning more about it from an outside perspective, I can see how that's a huge red flag. By the way, I'm so sorry about the background noise. There's construction outside. It's been going on all morning. But anyway, over the last few years, both on TikTok and on YouTube, I've talked about my experience as a Mormon, what it was like growing up in the Mormon church, how Mormon doctrine has shifted and changed over the years. I've talked about how Mormon history has been whitewashed and how devastating that was for me and many other ex-Mormons to find out. And I've talked about how I believe that the Mormon church is a destructive cult based on what we know about cults and the research I've done on other cults. And that brings me back to how the Mormon church always taught me that I should not listen to outside sources. And in my content over the last few years, I've always brought that up as like, look at this. They don't want you looking at outside sources, and that is a definite marker of a cult. I still believe that is true. However, I wanted to make a YouTube video about the differences and the similarities between the Mormon church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Jehovah's Witnesses. They obviously have a lot of differences, but there's a lot of similarities as well. And I don't know a ton about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Obviously, I was never a part of the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I have listened to a lot of people on YouTube talk about them. And I've had people ask about me doing a comparison video before. So I thought, I'll look it up, I'll see what I can come up with and make a video about it. And what I specifically Googled, as I just wanted to start looking into this, was Jehovah's Witnesses versus Mormons and see what came up. And there's like a few websites that have done like side-by-side comparisons. So I was like, I'll just look through some of these websites, like see what there is and start coming up with an idea for this video. And it's been very eye-opening. Not because I'm learning a ton about the Jehovah's Witnesses, but because I'm learning that a lot of people who write articles and have web pages dedicated to talking about Mormonism don't know much about Mormonism, apparently. As I started going through each of these websites and looking at all of their little things, I would read the Jehovah's Witness one and be like, oh, okay, interesting. And then turn to the Mormon one and they would say, Mormons believe XYZ. And I'm like, no, wait. I was a Mormon for 25 years. That's definitely not right. Like this one, for example, says that Jehovah's Witnesses do not sing songs, play musical instruments, or perform dances during their services. Mormons, on the other hand, are more open to music, but only during their church services? I'm sorry, what? There's nothing whatsoever stopping Mormons from listening to music at any time. And from my own experience being in the Mormon church, a lot of Mormons play musical instruments or sing. And I mean, they definitely have certain music that maybe they don't listen to if it's like got a lot of sexual innuendo in it or if it has like lots of swear words and stuff like that. But like on the whole, Mormons love music. For this one, Mormons believe that God is a spirit and not a physical being. Nope, that's not true at all. Mormons definitely believe that God has a body of flesh and bone. Or this one, Mormons also believe that Jesus is the first begotten of God, but not his son. They definitely believe that Jesus is God's son. And they say that over and over, even in like their, introductory story. The first thing that they tell people when they teach them about Joseph Smith is that Joseph Smith met God. And the way that God introduced Joseph Smith to Jesus was like, this is my beloved son, Jesus Christ. But anyway, most of these websites have a lot of wrong information. When I go to read about it and it's Jehovah's Witnesses versus Mormons, I'm reading the Mormon side and I'm like, they're totally wrong about this, this, and this. So how can I know what they're saying about Jehovah's Witnesses is correct? It probably isn't. If they're this wrong about one side, they're probably wrong about the other. So in the spirit of transparency, I can see where Mormons are coming from when they're not looking at outside information. If it's this incorrect this often. But also, to be fair, I think that it's important to look at information from many varying perspectives and saying as like a whole general rule, like don't trust outside information, that is still very culty. And also with something like this, that's just like super basic doctrinal information, I feel like whoever was writing these articles and putting up these web pages could have done a much better job of doing their research, because all you have to do is go to the church's website and ask these questions and, the answers would come up right away. Whereas with something that's a little more dicey and the church has not been entirely truthful about some of it, or they've hidden information, or they've whitewashed history, those things would be much more difficult to find on the church's website. Like, for example, they've started adding these gospel topics essays on their website where they have a little bit more information about things that they've been very secretive about in the past, like Joseph Smith's multiple dozens of wives, or the church's history of racism and homophobia. Those are the kinds of things that the church definitely doesn't want to talk about, and they've tried to sweep a lot of stuff like that under the rug, whereas stuff like this is just basic church information that whoever has put on these websites has just completely gotten wrong. Anyway, all in all, I think that's kind of funny, just considering the fact that I've always criticized the church for the fact that it tells its members not to look at outside sources of information. And then for this particular topic, when I looked at outside sources of information, it was completely incorrect. But that doesn't mean that when a group tells you, don't look at outside sources, it's not a cult. That's a very, very culty thing to say. If you want to get the full picture and have a more complete understanding of whatever it is you're researching, you need to look at it from many, many angles. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue looking into this because I do want to make a video about it. But I think that what I'm going to do is try to find an ex-Jehovah's Witness who's somebody that I can relate to as, an ex-member of a religion like that, and ask them some direct questions because they were actually a part of it versus looking at one of these websites where it seems like somebody who never was Mormon and doesn't know that much about it is trying to piece together information about it. So if you were ever a part of the Jehovah's Witness religion and you want to have a chat with me and let me get some information about what your beliefs were, go ahead and send me an email to exmolex@gmail.com. I would love to, just have a discussion, ask you some questions so I can put together a video about this, and it will be more accurate than what these websites could give me.